You know, I'm just gonna level with you. 2020 has been a terrible year. In case you've been living under a rock, there's a global pandemic, the United States is on the verge of a civil war, and they just announced a sequel to The Boss Baby. Oh dear God, why? So, in an attempt to spread some dopamine in both myself and the people who watch my videos, I figured I would return to one of my personal favorite video games, Zoo Tycoon 2. Now this game allows you to build the zoo of your dreams, well, prior to the release of Planet Zoo. This game was an extremely influential part of my childhood and probably one of the main reasons why I love animals so much today. We've got a wide variety of wildlife to choose from rhinoceroses to orangutans to a 6-foot-tall predatory penguin that may be possessed by Satan himself. I think it's safe to say that we have a lot to choose from. Let's jump right on in to Zoo Tycoon 2. Now, the most important thing, according to real estate agents, is location, location, location. Luckily, Zoo Tycoon 2 gives us basically the entire world to choose from. We could go basically anywhere. We could go to the Australian outback, the Pantanal of South America, the Gobi Desert, New Jersey, Timbuktu, Buenos Aires, Kuala Lumpur, whatever's left of the European Union, and the middle of the goddamn Pacific Ocean. But even though all of these locations would be beneficial to build a zoo, I think I have selected the best place. Antarctica. I mean, come on. When I think Antarctica, I of course think hot tourist destination. Fun fact, and I am not joking about this, Antarctic tourism is actually one of the major threats to the seventh continent. So if you're debating where to go on your vacation next year, I'd pick somewhere warmer. I hear Côte d'Ivoire is lovely at this time of year, especially the capital city of... well, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. So, yeah, don't visit Antarctica, visit Equatorial Africa. Well, I mean, visit Antarctica if you want to visit our zoo, of course, because we need the money. Give us money. So now that we have our plot of land in the middle of Antarctica, let's build our zoo. Now, I have thoroughly constructed a 6-point plan to success that will guarantee we make a profit and help save the planet. The first step on our plan is to get animals. I mean, what good zoo doesn't have animals? When you think of the South Pole, what wildlife do you think of? Definitely penguins, the planet's most well-dressed bird. Perhaps orcas, the murderous sea pandas of the world's waters? Polar bears? Well, if you said that, please leave. Literally every other species of bear lives closer to Antarctica than the polar bear does. Anywho, I thought, since Antarctica is the world's largest desert, that's true, look it up, what better choice than to display a desert animal? So I bought a singular dromedary. Due to my weird obsession with ancient history, I decided to name our camel after the former pharaoh of Egypt, Alexander the Great. But I named him Alexander because, as a resident of the Arabian Peninsula, as well as both the Sahara and Great Victoria Desert, he lives around a lot of sand, which sounds awful. If I'm being entirely honest, I'm not a very big fan of sand. It's very coarse, rough, and irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
Since we've welcomed a singular animal to our zoo and have begun to understand the fundamental basics of animal husbandry, I believe it is time to expand our portfolio into biogenetically engineering prehistoric megafauna. I mean, it's not rocket science. How hard could it be? Using my trustworthy 1950s sci-fi laser gun, I began to uncover multiple fossils that I probably just buried before I started filming, because Zoo Tycoon 2 does not understand how paleobiological geography works. After uncovering a part of a Styracosaurus, which was a ceratopsy native to the exotic and dangerous wastelands of Canada, a mere 16,000 kilometers away from the seventh continent, I got bored, thank you again ADHD, and proceeded to hire a small army's worth of paleontologists. With my new recruits, finding fossils became a breeze, and before I knew it, it was time to bone. Wait, I didn't mean like that, stop the music! Due to an increase in guests, I decided to stop my work on reanimating extinct species and focus on increasing our collection. I need to acquire an animal that would raise the ticket prices just by existing nearby. Ugh, fine. No, I love making fun of pandas and how people will go to great lengths to see them, but I have to admit it, I too am a panda simp. In April of last year, I visited the giant pandas before they left San Diego, and my god, they were so adorable. So I adopted a pair of giant pandas and placed them in a nice sized habitat so they could get to boning. Honestly, I believe that pandas refuse to mate on purpose so that they can get as much money as possible. There's probably some giant panda mafia built around just straight up laundering money. Despite not being an endangered species, pandas still receive upwards of $6.9 billion a year from conservation funds and donations. I believe that if we want to save more threatened species, we need to fatten them up, paint them monochromatic, and put them on birth control. Then they'll be drowning in the money. Anywho, I decided that if I gave the pandas appropriate names, it might encourage them to mate faster. However, it did not, further adding to my theory that pandas refuse to bone. But whilst I was inspecting the perimeter of the panda enclosure, I helped out my paleontologists, well, by doing all the work for them, but this time, rather than uncovering a fossil fragment or skeletal remains, I uncovered an entire beef shank. This began to raise a multitude of questions, the first and most predominant being, why? But I shoved those questions aside and began to construct an exhibit for the meat, whom I named Wellington. It was around this time I realized, hey, there are surprisingly more adults than children in my zoo. So I thought to myself, what do children nowadays like? So, in an attempt to get more kids into the zoo, I hired a few of the animatronics from the Five Nights at Freddy's series to roam the zoo and perform on a stage between the compost buildings and the restroom. Nothing gets butts in seats than seeing a puppet show held by a homicidal maniac in a dinosaur costume right behind a toilet. I decided to name them to work on our brand recognition. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese has Charles Entertainment Cheese, Ronald McDonald works for McDonald's, so for our Antarctic zoo, we have Bungus, Chungus, Leopold von Dickensmall, and Jungus. Unfortunately, our characters weren't enough on their own to boost sales, so I returned to our little Frankenstein-esque experiments. After completing a series of puzzles that could easily be solved by an illiterate anteater, and briefly being stared down by that guy from The Matrix, a dinosaur pops out. I'm not really sure if that's how prehistoric reproduction works, but okay. I constructed a new exhibit for which the dinosaur would call home. I made sure to use the strongest fence in the game, which I also used to resecure Wellington. Despite being native to Alberta, Canada, Zoo Tycoon 2 believes that Styracosaurus inhabited tropical rainforests. I am no expert, but I do not believe that the climate of Cretaceous Calgary matched that of the Amazonian rainforest, but I digress. I am no game designer. So, to make our Ceratops seem more at home, I decided to terraform most of Antarctica into a f***ing rainforest. Listen, we've messed the planet up enough. If we're gonna die here on our own terms, and we might as well have some fun with it. We're gonna turn Antarctica into the next hot tourist destination. After I had turned Antarctica into the sequel to the Congo Basin, I decided to build a new enclosure for another popular creature, gorillas. Gorillas are one of my favorite primates. They're so incredible, they're so intelligent, strong, and charismatic. Everybody loves them. But to protect both the guests and the gorillas, I decided to put in a moat, but I had to be careful. Chimpanzees are a close cousin of gorillas, and as we all know,
in water, chimps will drown.
So I had to make sure that the water was shallow as to not accidentally waterboard our apes. I feel like having an open exhibit plan will make the gorillas feel more at home, so that's what I went with. Anywho, it was at this moment that I realized that a child had fallen into the gorilla habitat, and I got some serious deja vu. After that interesting event, I decided to add a new exhibit, not only to boost sales, but also an attempt to cover up the brutal murder of a 10-year-old child by a f***ing mountain gorilla. I apologize, I've been told not to discuss the event, you know, the whole loose lips sink ships and all that. Ironically, loose lips were one of the only body parts that were left over from the attack, after the guest's arms were ripped clean off and then shoved down his own throat by the endangered silverback. Anywho, I thought of what the kids these days are interested in, and for some reason I could not stop thinking about the 1975 blockbuster Jaws, and I adopted a shiver of great white sharks. And yes, shiver is actually the correct collective noun for sharks. Completely unrelated, did you know that we got most of our collective nouns for animals from a book called the Book of St. Albans, which was written in the 1480s? Apparently the book also had collective nouns for different groups of people, but considering that it was written in the 15th century, they are probably a bit racist. Anywho, I found a guest whose favorite animal were sharks, so as sort of a make-a-wish thing, I let the kiddo swim with the sharks. However, unfortunately afterwards, tragedy struck. I'm not talking about the kid getting eaten, we all knew that was inevitable, but my game crashed, so I guess that was either my computer or the universe's way of telling me this is where the video needs to end. I will see you all next time. Peace out.